Welcome back to today's truth. Last week we cracked open the chaos behind the government shutdown and the political jihad being seen in New York. But here's the thing, we barely scratched the surface. Today in part 2, I'm going to be exposing what's really driving this fight, what they don't want you to notice, and why the fallout is aimed straight at the everyday Americans. If you thought last week shook things up, this one's about to snap you wide awake. Let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode here of Today's Truth Podcast. I'm your host, Graham. Unfortunately, I don't have Dave or Ash with me at this time, but I still wanted to come on and give you guys another look at what's going on with the government shutdown over the last week since our last filming. And to be quite frank, quite a bit has happened, but quite a bit hasn't happened. And I will explain that a little bit more in detail here momentarily. But first things first. The government shutdown lasted well over a month. And I know we stated that in our episode last week, and it is incredibly vital that everyone understands how dire that is. For over a month, we had workers, civilians, people going without pay because the government couldn't make up their mind. Or I shouldn't say that they couldn't make up their mind. They couldn't agree. And it's not that the things that were being asked were too much. What it was is the Democrats didn't want to agree to just open the government and then decide things later. They wanted to significantly harm the American people. And we see this in multiple comments that Chuck Schumer made, multiple comments that other Democratic leaders made in the Senate. Chuck Schumer even said that every day that this drags on is a better day for us. And he was talking about the Democrats. He wasn't talking about the American people. He wasn't talking about this is going to be better for the American people. He was specifically talking about how this is better for them. They intentionally risked American lives, risked Americans' citizens' well-being to play a game. And that game of chess they lost. Because just the other day, there was a handful of Democratic senators, which I'm going to go over the list with you here just momentarily, but there was a list and a significant amount of Democratic senators that changed their vote in order for this clean bill to pass. And this clean bill was literally just to open up the government. It wasn't about all the extra stuff with Obamacare. It left everything that was a pinch point for the two sides to agree on, it left it out. This deal to reopen the government was just to make sure that American people are taken care of. EBT could be turned back on, and government workers could get paid. TSA and air traffic controllers can get back to work. That was all that it was meant for, but the Democrats didn't want to change. They didn't care to change. They wanted their way. They wanted $249 billion to go to random offshore places, not even helping our American citizens. They wanted the subsidies from Obamacare, which are hurting American taxpayers because it's going to fund illegal immigrants through that system. They wanted all of that to continue. That is what their basis was. That's why they didn't want to make the agreement. They didn't want to make the changes and pass the legislation to open up the government again. It is absolutely freaking nuts how much the Democrats were against it and they were hurting the American people. And I don't know if you see it, but you better start opening your eyes. You better start waking up because the Democrats and the far left are intentionally harming Americans, regardless of what they say that they're doing. Look behind the scenes. Look behind the curtain that they've pulled over that window. You are no longer able to see transparently into what they're doing. There's no transparency whatsoever. They say one thing, they do another. But like I said, I want to actually put the names out there of these Democratic senators who actually helped to break this stalemate that was going on. And I applaud them for having the guts to step out, change their vote, and help get the government restarted again. So we're going to go over that list real quick here. First off, we had John Fetterman of Pennsylvania. he switched his vote and blamed his party for shutting down the government. He has voted for the House-passed continuing resolution since the upper chambers first voted on September 19th. So he's been voting for this the whole time. So I want to give John Fetterman a big thumbs up. Man, you stepped out. You were a front runner. You were leading. And I appreciate that. Another one is Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada. She spoke at a press conference with Senate Democrats who voted to restore government funding in Washington, D.C. And her vote to reopen the government has explained that the shutdown has harmed her constituents and even more power to this reckless Senate. And she tried to claim that it was a reckless administration, but the administration isn't a part of this. But she still stepped out. I'm going to give her props for that. Now we're going to move on down to Angus King of, looks like, Maine. He's an independent who caucuses with the Democrats, but also split with the Democratic Party in the second vote and has voted to reopen the government in every vote since then. So after the second vote, he's been voting to reopen it. He didn't want to wait either. Then we come down to Dick Durbin of Illinois. He also voted, and he's also not running for re-election in 2026. So I think maybe he just decided, I've got nothing else to lose, and the government needs to open so my constituents can be okay. But one of his specific things he said was, it is not perfect, but it takes important steps. And he was pointing that out to reduce the pain and affliction of those that were affected by this shutdown. Another one is Maggie Hassan of New Hampshire. I hope I'm saying that right. She helped broker the bipartisan agreement and voted Sunday to advance the deal. And this is just a quote from what she said. She said, "At a time when families desperately need relief, Washington's dysfunction is making life harder for families. And the last 39 days are proof." 39 days, she stated it right there. They were in a shutdown and in arguments for 39 days that affected the American people. Absolutely ridiculous. Then you have Tim Kaine of Virginia. He represents a large share of federal workers. And as you know, they were all not getting paid at all through that government shutdown. He also supported the bipartisan deal, which includes a provision to reverse government layoffs implemented by the Trump administration during the shutdown. So some things were kind of pushed back and forth. But he says this legislation will protect federal workers from baseless firings, reinstate those who have been wrongfully terminated during the shutdown, and ensure federal workers receive payback as required by a law that he got passed back in 2019. Now, as I do agree that some of these firings have happened a little bit, I would say, in an iffy gray area, I believe that those firings were done for a reason, so I can't completely agree with Tim Kaine. The only thing I can agree with him on is voting yes to get that bill put through and to reopen the government. Moving on, we've got Jackie Rosen of Nevada. Jackie said in a statement Sunday that she was convinced to support the measure because President Trump and Washington Republicans are weaponizing their power. This is something that they are trying to use. They're saying that Trump is weaponizing his power. Nothing that Trump did was weaponizing his power. He was utilizing his power to do what the American people voted him into office to do. Remove people that aren't doing a dang thing. Remove illegal immigrants who are threatening our economy and our and our citizens. And he's just doing his job. Something that a president of the United States has not done in decades of actually doing their job. And then we also have Jeanne Shaheen of New Hampshire. She is also retiring next year and helped to negotiate the framework. And her quote that she said is, "This was the only deal on the table. It was our best chance to reopen the government and immediately begin negotiations to extend the rest of the stuff that they're looking at." So they're not stopping the arguments, but they voted yes to turn and go for this bill so that these people can start getting paid. American families can stop suffering. But the thing that strikes me the most is back up with John Fetterman of Pennsylvania. John Fetterman saying that this is hurting American people. and that the Democrats are doing this. Literally blamed his party for shutting down the government. He made a statement about that. And John, if you ever get a chance to listen to this, whether or not we agree on the baseline of things or even the high level of things, I appreciate you seeing what your party is doing and standing up against it. That is the first step to greatness, my friend, and I appreciate that. But moving on to the bigger part of this entire thing. The government shutdown deal to reopen the government was not just set aside and changed and the Republicans not being willing to work with anybody. The Republicans were willing to sit down and talk with them. That's what these bigger, broader talks are going to be about. All the Republicans wanted to do was reopen the government so people could get paid. The American people weren't being held hostage. But if you look at what the Democrats did, more than a dozen times, they voted against a clean bill that just literally opened it up so people got paid. They were against their own constituents getting the help that they need, getting the benefits that they deserve. How can you sit there idly by and watch your representative basically tell you, hey, you're SOL. We want this. So, sorry, constituents, but I've got to do what I think is best, not what you need and what's best for you. I can't confirm this, but the $249 billion that is going to these random places, and this isn't the name of one by any means, but, it's stuff along the lines of funding LGBTQ plus help in Zimbabwe or stuff like that. It is not stuff the United States need to be sending $250 billion across the world to do. When we have people here in our own country suffering, people in our own country, that $249 billion, $250 billion, whatever it is, would go a long way. Talk about veteran homelessness. We have United States military veterans who are living on the streets and they aren't getting help. There is not money in the budget to help these men and women. But yet, our Democratic senators want to send $250 billion to other countries to help things that those countries should learn how to take care of themselves. We are not the babysitter. We are not the sugar daddy to other countries. But yet the Democratic Party wants to maintain that. They want to be that sugar daddy. But at the same time, how can we confirm that these places that money is going to aren't just money laundering schemes or a way of paying themselves money? If you look even just at Nancy Pelosi, she was worth a few $100,000 going into politics. Now she is worth millions and millions of dollars. And I'm going to tell you what, that's through insider trading. Insider trading. There's other politicians who some of this money that Doge drew up and dug out literally traced back to lawmakers having a stake in that company, to senators having a stake in that company, congressmen having a stake in that company that money was going to, into that. To me, that is money laundering in a way. It is playing the system. It is trying to basically screw American people out of their money. And this is absolutely ridiculous. That is why I'm so glad and so proud of our Republican senators, because they stood firm. They said, no, we are not going to fold to your demands. We are not going to let the American people continue to have to pay things for other countries, for other people, when we have all of our own problems here at home. These problems here at home are absolutely the biggest thing we need to worry about. And that's what President Trump and his administration are trying to do. That's what the Senate Republicans are trying to do. They're trying to look at, okay, what is best for the American people? How can we help the American people to, number one, not have to pay so much in taxes, not be getting completely chewed out of their own money through the expense of things, gas, food, rent, all this stuff. Their concentration is on the American people. Democrats, their concentration is on their own pocketbook. What is going to benefit them the most? And you will see a significant change if we actually have a House and a Senate that is only focused on the American people and making their lives better. But right now we don't have that. We have a few that are trying, and they're making waves. President Trump has a good team backing him up. But this government shutdown, do not listen to what the media is spewing out about this shutdown. Do not listen to how they are saying, hey, this was the Republicans not wanting to make a deal. Because here's the thing, Republicans stayed firm. They never changed anything. They wanted a clean bill and then said, let's talk about things afterwards. Let's make concessions afterwards, but let's not hold the American people hostage. Chuck Schumer, the dirty slime ball he is, literally said, every day that this shutdown continues gets better for us. He was willing to hold the American people hostage, not receiving pay, not receiving the food benefits that these needy families are trying to get. People that couldn't feed their families were struggling because the Democrats decided, we don't want to make a deal. We don't want to open the government and then talk about it. We want to make our demands now. And voted against it over a dozen times. I mean, right now for me, I'm somewhat at a loss for words. Because I am so livid about holding American people hostage. It is no different than a communist regime, which, speaking of, New York City, I hope you are ready. I hope you are buckling up because you are about to go on one hell of a roller coaster that you voted for. Mondumi is nothing but a political jihadist that has weaseled his way in to power 25 years after his people killed thousands of our citizens in New York City in the attacks on the World Trade Center. Think about that. We said we will never forget. Every banner that has 9/11 on it says, never forget. But what did we just do? New York, what did you just do? Because I'm sorry, I wasn't a part of that. That's not a we, that's a you. What did you just do? You forgot who attacked us. You forgot who divided us. You forgot who we fought 20 years of a war to eliminate because of what they did to our country, the atrocity that they placed upon our people, the murders they committed. You completely forgot, and you have elected someone into office as mayor of your city that is going to destroy it. He is already talking about freezing rents so tenants can live rent-free, and the building owners, the landlords, are having to figure out, how are we going to pay our own property taxes? How are we going to pay for maintenance of the buildings? That is absolutely ridiculous. There should not ever be that type of legislation. But New Yorkers pulled him into office with their votes because he promised free stuff. He promised to give them handouts. But what do those handouts come at the cost of? The lower level, lower class, and middle class, they rely on the rich and the upper class for jobs, for housing, for tons of different things. But those are the two major: jobs and housing. But if these landlords, if these business owners, number one, have to pay more to their workers, but charge less for their products and their services, and then the landlords having to not take rent, but still pay for the building upkeep and pay for the property taxes, and if they have a loan on the building still, and it's financed, all of that, what is going to happen? Number one, those apartments are going to turn into slums. Those apartments are going to be so run down, they're not going to get maintenance because the building owners are not going to have the funds to do it. Those buildings are going to end up going to the bank. Guess what happens when a apartment building gets taken over by bank? A lot of times, the bank kicks out every tenant because they need to go in and they need to revamp that building, or they need to find out how much can they actually sell it for. You can't sell a building very well when you have tenants inside. So a lot of the times the banks will take and evict those tenants. Businesses that are being forced to pay their employees far more but charge less for services are going to start going bankrupt. They're going to start closing down shop because they can't afford to sustain. What is that going to do to the economy in New York? What is that going to do to the city as a whole? It's going to run it to the ground. These policies that Mamdani is bringing in and wants to do are not for the betterment of New York. This is a dry run following the Dearborn, Michigan dry run to a larger scale political jihad that our enemy is pushing for. You can see it because look what happened in Dearborn. It is totally almost taken over by Muslims. New York is next. They're trying it with bigger and bigger cities. They went from Dearborn to New York. Minneapolis is having the same problem as well. They are taking over. And I'm sorry, but you people are dumb for allowing them to. You are not thinking for yourselves. You're not thinking about, okay, number one, what's going on here? I need to decide for myself. Critical thinking. And I'm going to just blaze right now with the LGBTQ plus community. You marched in the streets of Times Square in support of Mamdani. Do you know what Muslims, true Muslims that are practicing Muslims, what their faith dictates that they do to somebody who's homosexual? Any ideas? I can tell you right now, I'm not going to go into detail, but it's not pretty. You think that the persecution that you're receiving now because you don't feel like you have equal rights is bad? Just wait till you're persecuted by them, because it's not going to be persecution. It's murder. It's stoning. It is to the point that you won't be able to get a job. You won't be able to do anything, let alone even come out of your apartment or your house as an openly gay, trans, or lesbian person. Their religion is completely against it. And you can argue with me in the comments all day long. I have studied it. I know former Muslims who talk about this openly that say, hey, no, I was a Muslim. This is not what they think it's going to be. I saw Jews marching for Mamdani. How can a Jew openly march for a Muslim who Muslims have been trying to eliminate the Jews for decades? To me, this is just ridiculous. They've been so blinded by the promise of free things and listening to the media, listening to all the BS lies, that they are so blinded to the actual truth. And I want to simply tell each and every one of you, take some time to critically think, to look at things, to think through it, and not listen to what you're being told. Stop being a sheep led to slaughter, because that is exactly where all of this is going to. If we do not stand up as the American people and specifically keep people out of power that intentionally want to harm us, then this country is going to go to hell in a handbasket very quickly. Right now, thankfully, we do have lawmakers, we do have legislators, and we do have a presidential office that is looking out for what's best for the American people, removing some of those threats. And right now, I also want to urge all Republican senators, I don't know who watches this at this point, but if you are a Republican senator or you are a Republican in general, call your senator. If you are a senator, listen very closely. An investigation needs to be done on Mamdani, or as I call him, Mamdani, into his records for citizenship. There are some very interesting things that you will find if you do a deep dive. There are multiple questions that are a fail if you do not answer them, that were unanswered on his application for citizenship. He has ties and loyalties to his home country, which I'm going to tell you right now, it ain't a friendly one to the United States. If you are not friendly to the United States and you have a citizen that comes over here and wants to get citizenship here, you might want to tell them good luck. Because as Trump goes through and redoes things, it's going to make a ripple effect that way. But Mondumi has ties to his home country, which we are not on good terms with. He has ties to Islam, as he is a practicing Muslim, very proud of it, in fact. And that's why another thing you all need to know is Muslims are told that they are allowed to lie as long as it gets them what they want and advances what Islam teaches, that they're allowed to lie. That is just heinous. I don't know how anybody could say, okay, well, I understand that, he might not be 100% truthful, but he's going to do this for New York. No, he ain't going to do that for New York. He lied to you. And I hope that you start seeing that. Even to the point that he said, hey, I am not going to ask you guys for money anymore. Then literally within 24 hours of getting elected and winning the election, before he's even being sworn in, now he's saying, well, we're going to need some people to be able to pay for this free stuff that I'm giving away. He already lied to you there. And the lies just continue. He's not there for the American people. But I could go on and on and on about this, because it frustrates me to no end that American people look at what the media tells them, they listen to the lies, they don't think for themselves, and they make a stupid decision that is going to destroy a beautiful city. A city that 25 years ago was attacked by members of his religious affiliation and places that he has ties to. I'm sorry, but New York, you have forgotten. And I am ashamed that you have forgotten, that you had allowed this. But with that, thank you all for watching this episode of Today's Truth. I know I've gotten a little bit fired up, but this is a topic that really frustrates me, because I served in the United States Army. I have friends who died fighting after 9/11. The day that 9/11 happened is when I decided that I was going to be a soldier. It was when I decided that I was going to go and fight for my country. And unfortunately, there are areas in my country that have given up fighting for themselves. They're allowing the enemy in. And that bothers me so much. But thank you for joining me for this week's episode. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, I invite you to make a comment down below, whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, or listening on Spotify. Please leave a comment. Please also like, subscribe, and share these episodes as they come out. Our goal is to help you to think critically, for you to see the things that are happening behind the scenes. Today's Truth Podcast, our whole team, myself, Dave, and Ash, we want to help you. So I really just want to encourage all of you. Think critically. Don't listen to the media. Do your own research before you come to a conclusion, before you make a decision. And stand on that decision. Don't let what they're telling you sway what you're able to find for yourself. The media can't be trusted. Politicians can't be trusted. Educational institutions can't be trusted. So we have to learn to think critically for ourselves. Research things for ourselves. And make America great again through critical thinking. So with that, I bid you all adieu, and we'll see you on the next episode of Today's Truth.